Hi everyone, Sandman here. Today's video is brought to you by a donation from Chris, and he didn't give me a specific topic, so I'm going to first read a comment by a lady named Anastasia that she posted on my channel, and then I'll analyze it and talk about why men going their own way baffle women as well as feminists. I spoke in one of my videos that no matter how much I explain MGTOW to women, they never seem to get it, and here's what Anastasia had to say to that point. Hi Sandman, yeah, I guess I have a hard time understanding how evolution effed up so badly that it created a group of men that don't want to reproduce. Don't blame society. There have been times in history when raising a family was much more difficult and men still did it. Your kind has some sort of disgust towards women, which is simply unnatural. The course of evolution has designed us to want to live and reproduce. You don't seem to have that urge, or else you're trying to desperately repress it. Just as feminism will disappear as they all die without having any children, the same will happen to the MGTOW movement. You don't have kids, and I doubt many MGTOWs come from a monogamous family structure that you reject, as monogamous families tend to be happier and far more balanced. When you and your followers are long dead, there will be hardly any men that share your paralyzing fear of being owned by women and losing their status as free wild stallions. I also find it funny that you mention having good intentions in a relationship only to be deceived by a woman, and then believing that you've discovered a dark secret in the true nature of women. I'll tell you a personal story. Not so long ago I entered a relationship with a young man that I knew, and we dated for almost 3 months. Even in that very small amount of time I began to care for him immensely. I can honestly say that I had no intention of manipulating him, or even cheating on him, or any other evil thing that you could imagine women doing to their partners. I really loved him. The intense feelings of protectiveness and nurturing that I felt for him were overwhelming and created a withdrawal that distracted me in my classes. Without making this too long, I felt like caring for him and sharing my body and soul with him, which were basically the best things in my life. I was incredibly naive because it turned out that he was just using me. While I was worried about making him happy, he was not emotionally attached to me at all, and I quickly noticed that he would basically never share any of his thoughts with me, but just seemed to use me physically. He seemed to avoid me in public and ignored me in the presence of his friends. He never actually answered any of my text messages and would cancel plans at the last minute. In the beginning, we spoke 75% of the time and were physically intimate around 25% of the time that we were together. 2 months later, we spoke about 10% of the time, excluding logistical and practical dialogues, and were physically intimate about 90% of the time that we were together. Basically, he was treating me as if I were a stupid whore. And it was clear that he went into the relationship with a certain agenda, and he concealed it from me by pretending to care about my feelings and opinions. He wasted my time for many months, instead of simply being honest. But what I want you to gather from this story is that I did not react like you did. If I were you, I would have become bitter and decided that all men were inconsiderate dogs who only care about women for their bodies. I would have convinced myself that love doesn't exist, but that love is simply men and women using each other for a strategic release of brain chemicals as well as the acquisition of certain resources. I would have grown to hate the violence, emotional manipulation, and lack of profundity that is present in some men. In short, I would have become a woman going her own way. Instead, I realized that men and women are not so fundamentally different. We can both be deceitful, lazy, manipulative, and selfish, although it may be for different motives. We both tend to abuse one another as well. But in men and women, there are often good people too. I went on to find a nice man that I'm currently dating, and I'm optimistic about our future. And if it doesn't work out, I'll look for another. But I'll never give up the way that you have. Even my grandmother, whose first 2 husbands died, found love at 64, and they were together until her death. Imagine how sad she would have been if she'd given up and lived all those years alone. What I want to tell you, Sandman, is that you should be more optimistic. In your videos, you seem rather troubled. It's not good to be so hateful, either. Since the day you were born, you've basically been programmed to seek love from a woman, your mother, and we all desperately need to be loved by someone. And the only thing that stops us is ourselves. Love is just 2 people realizing their fundamental human need to be loved, as well as to agree to work together towards a common goal. We women are not evil. Many of us are just as confused and lonely as you are. We really aren't aiming to hurt anyone. Just stay away from the emotionally damaged women and you should be okay. Love from America, Anna. Well, Anastasia, thanks for your shaming language, as well as for dumping your emotional baggage on everyone here. Let me just say that I'm planning on having my own children through surrogacy, and I want to use that as an example on how to motivate other men to do it as well. I'll do my research and find the path of least resistance so that other men can follow me down that path if they choose. Yes, I have the urge to reproduce, but it's not so that some woman can hold a child over my head and get me to jump through hoops. Many men going their own way would choose to reproduce, but it's just too dangerous to do in today's gynocentric world to do so with a mentally unstable woman with too many options to screw us over for cash and prizes. You also say that my kind has some disgust towards women that's unnatural. But what you need to understand is the natural love that most men fall into usually only happens when a guy is in his early to mid-30s. After that, his rational mind overtakes his penis procreation brain. And I don't have to repress my desire to reproduce. I can feel it decreasing year after year, month after month. And you see, the only thing I actually want to repress is falling in love and becoming a slave to a wife. You also say that MGTOW men come from broken homes, but I find the complete opposite. In fact, it's monogamy that's actually caused this in me, as well as many of my friends. Seeing the way that my almost 80-year-old father gets treated day after day by my mother, verbally and emotionally abused, is basically a crime and has now turned me off to marriage completely. A few of my other friends have also gone their own way because their own fathers married women that were good as can be in our society. And my friends simply wanted women to be their brides and actually share the loyalty, hard work, and obedience that their mothers once had. Yet all they kept running into were greedy carousel riding control freaks. Anastasia, you and the other women don't seem to understand MGTOW. I think you're here to figure out what motivated us to leave the plantation in the first place. You can't seem to help but think that you're all that in a bag of chips. But as women age, their hypergamy and greed only increases. They want more and more, and ironically men want less sex. Males and females converge in their 20s, say between 20 and 25, and both want sex roughly equally. Those are of course also the prime fertility years. After that, women want more and more stuff and become increasingly status-driven as well as materialistic. Men's sex drives often plateau and then begin to decline. Women don't seem to understand men going their own way because they probably think that men want to have sex the same way that they did while they were still younger. Yet you and the other women will never understand MGTOW because you crave attention, and for men not to give it to you takes away your reason for existing. I've discovered a darkness inside of women, as have many other men listening to this right now. Maybe you can't see it because you live with it each and every single day. You also said something rather interesting, that since I was born I was programmed to seek love by my mother. Programming a baby boy into a needy love-seeking robot is purely wrong. Yes, we all need to be loved by someone, but not when that someone is holding a metaphorical gun to our heads and can pull the trigger at any moment. Gone are the days when women needed to depend on a man for their income. Now they have their own and can also steal a man's income through childbirth and marriage as well. That's why I'm troubled in my videos, because I see men working like dogs and women wasting the resources they provide and then discarding them like a piece of trash. Just think back when you were discarded like a piece of garbage in your relationship. Anastasia, what can I say? You dated for almost 3 months. That's quite the accomplishment. And I'm sure it'll go down in the record books as one of the great tragic romances of the 21st century. But try that type of cold treatment for 5 to 10 years and then see how you feel. That's what men go through with their wives. In all honesty, you're still going through the feeling out stage in those first 3 months of a relationship. You should have kept your legs shut until you knew that he had feelings for you instead of allowing him to spread them like butter. Now you're off to the races as a carousel rider. And the likelihood of you bouncing around from guy to guy in the future has now increased dramatically, and your ability to pair bond will decrease with each and every single new partner. If you're serious about the guy you're dating right now, then you'll do whatever you can to make sure that he's emotionally attached to you. And maybe only then you'll actually let him get into your pants. But I doubt this because women, when attracted to a man, will often let them into their pants immediately. With regards to the man that you supposedly loved, you see he didn't hurt you, but you allowed yourself to be used like a tissue paper. Couldn't you have just waited more than 2 or 3 months to actually have sex with him? You were probably intimate with him on the second or maybe even third date. And this sounds like the first guy that you were emotionally imprinted on or bonded with, and you're bitter about the entire ordeal. Otherwise, you wouldn't have used the men on this YouTube channel as emotional tampons to dump your toxic emotional baggage onto. And no, you didn't react the way that I did because it was only a 3-month relationship and not necessarily a full decade of your life. Today's women are typically emotionally damaged after they've had their first boyfriend. And in this point in my life, I can attract women in their mid to late 20s and 30s that have more baggage than the Samsonite company. Yes, I agree that both men and women can be deceitful and lazy, but deceit is deeply ingrained in the female psyche because if a woman didn't actually trick a man into providing for her, catching animals in the past or farming, or possibly even drilling for fossil fuels today, then she would die. The choice is either lie or die, and most women basically choose to lie. Women are not evil, yet they use a man's love for his kids as a weapon against him. That to me is the pure embodiment of evil, and half the women in our society are willing to do this right now. Great white sharks rarely bite human beings and don't like the way that we taste, but women bite men half the time. Maybe the film Jaws should have actually been about a gold mining mermaid instead of a killer shark. Well, Anastasia, that's about all I've got to say to you, with love from Canada, Sandy Locks. And to Chris, I just want to thank you for your donation. As for everyone else out there, please follow me on Twitter or like me on Facebook to get tomorrow's video today. Thanks for taking your daily dose of red pills. And remember, a red pill a day keeps the divorce lawyers away. So enjoy the rest of your day, and cheers.